Why he abandoned her on their wedding day for her sister, a shocking betrayal. The church bells rang, echoing through the hallowed halls, a beautiful melody that invited love and celebration. But on this fateful day, it clashed violently with the horror unfurling in the hearts of the gathered crowd. Jess stood there, a vision in white, her flowing dress catching the sunlight like shimmering waves. She gripped her bouquet tightly, too tight, her fingers pale and trembling. The air was thick with excitement, anticipation, and an undercurrent of unease that left a sour taste in everyone's mouths. But it was the empty altar that drew all eyes. A silence swept over them, thick and suffocating. Where was Mark? The groom who had promised to love her forever, who had swept her off her feet, was nowhere to be found. Murmurs rippled through the guests. They exchanged confused glances, brows furrowing, a collective pulse of disbelief. Could he really have stood her up? Then, like a punch to the gut, Jess saw something move at the back of the church. It was her sister, Chloe, her face a storm of confusion and guilt. The sight of Chloe in her simple but elegant dress sent a fresh wave of anguish through Jess. "What are you doing here?" she muttered, the lump in her throat rising. The sisters had always been close, but this felt more like betrayal than any petty squabble they'd ever had. As the seconds dragged into eternity, Jess felt herself slipping beneath the weight of sorrow. Cold sweat trickled down her spine, and a tightness gripped her chest. The last of the guests began to whisper. "Is this some sort of cruel joke?" One man whispered, glancing at Chloe. "I can't believe he'd leave her like this. Where could he be?" Another voice, thick with concern, chimed in. With each passing moment, Jess felt like the walls were closing in around her. Then, suddenly, the church doors swung open. All heads turned, gasps filling the air. There he was, Mark, looking disheveled and defeated. But next to him, oh God, was Chloe. The two of them shared a glance that felt charged with something more than guilt. What had happened? Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Jess's heart raced, pounding in her ears. The truth felt just beyond her reach, a shadow lurking in the corner of her mind. She took a step forward, fighting through the chaotic swell of emotions crashing against her. "What is going on?" she demanded, her voice barely a whisper, yet it echoed through the silence like a gunshot. Mark's eyes darted around, filled with panic and desperation, but Chloe remained still, her gaze unwavering. As the world spun around them, Jess knew she was on the brink of discovering something that would change everything. What secret had unraveled this day of dreams? What betrayal had ripped her world apart? The answer lay just in front of her, hurtling closer like an oncoming train, and Jess braced herself for impact. Jess stared at them, her breath catching in her throat as confusion morphed into rage. Mark, the one person she had trusted above all, was now standing there, side by side with her sister, looking like a man who had just escaped a storm. Jess, Mark started, his voice trembling as he took a step forward. "Don't," she snapped, lifting her hand as if to ward off his words, the rawness of betrayal leaving her exposed. "You don't get to explain anything. Not here, not now." An audible gasp rippled through the crowd. Eyes widened, faces turned towards one another, silently asking the same question. What the hell was going on? Some guests shifted uncomfortably, while others leaned in, eager for the unfolding scandal. Chloe stepped forward, her expression shifting from guilt to determination. "Jess, I didn't want this to happen." "Then don't make it worse," Jess interrupted, her voice rising with each syllable. A wave of heat flushed her cheeks. She felt the weight of all their friends' and family's attention bearing down on her, scrutiny closing in like a vice. "You knew this day meant everything to me. How could you do this? How could you?" Mark's brow furrowed as if he were struggling to articulate his side. "Jess, please let me explain." "Explain what?" she shouted, the words echoing off the church's ornate walls. "How you abandoned me at the altar. Or how you decided that my sister was somehow a better choice." The wind of rejection swirled around her, pulling at her sanity, her heart pounding like a war drum. Chloe's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I didn't mean to fall for him. It just happened." The confession hung in the air like a cloud of smoke. "It just happened?" Jess repeated incredulously. "You've been planning this for weeks." The way you looked at him, the whispers when I wasn't around. Mark shook his head, desperation etched into his features. "No, Jess. I love you. I've always loved you." His voice cracked as he spoke, and Jess could see the anguish cutting through him. But it was too late. The damage was done. "And yet, here you are, showing up with her," Jess replied, her heart shattering further with each word. The irony twisted in her stomach. "You claim to love me, but you betray me in front of all our friends and family. It makes me wonder how long you've been lying to me." She took a step back, clutching her bouquet until the stems dug into her palm. Suddenly, a commotion at the back of the church drew their attention. An older woman, her face pale and drawn, rushed forward, her gaze fixed on Mark. "How could you do this to your mother, Mark?" She's devastated. "You've ruined everything." The anger and disappointment in her voice sliced through the tension, like a knife through butter, revealing a different layer of betrayal. Jess felt the tears sting her eyes, the weight of humiliation crashing down on her. Mark turned to defend himself against his mother's outburst, his expression a whirlwind of regret, anger, and an urgent plea for understanding. And Chloe, she stood frozen, the silent witness to a world collapsing around them. The air crackled with the weight of unasked questions and buried truths. Jess felt a flicker of doubt spark within her. Was there more to this story than she could grasp? What secrets were festering just beneath the surface, waiting to explode? She couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. As she stood there, questions swirling in her mind, she knew one thing. The answers would shatter everything she thought she knew, but what else lay hidden in the shadows? What would it take for Jess to uncover the truth? Jess's heart raced, each thump sounding like a countdown to disaster. Her eyes darted between Mark and Chloe, searching for any flicker of remorse or even a sign of how deep their betrayal ran. The murmurs of the crowd buzzed in her ears, whispers of judgment, pity, and surprise. Their eyes were like daggers, each glare stabbing at her already fragile composure. "Mark, say something," she demanded, her voice breaking into a desperate plea. This time, it wasn't just anger fueling her words, it was sheer confusion. She wanted the truth more than anything, but every second felt like an eternity, each passing moment thickening the air around them. "Please, Jess." "I never wanted to hurt you," Mark said, his voice lower now, almost pleading. "Can we talk about this privately?" "I didn't what?" Jess interrupted, her stomach churning at the audacity of his request. "You didn't think I should find out in front of everyone? You didn't plan for this day to end in complete humiliation for me?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out, just a guilty silence that felt like a punch to her gut. An icy pit formed in her chest as she watched him and her sister, standing so close, but closer than either of them had any right to be. Especially not at her wedding. The weight of betrayal crushed her. Suddenly, she felt dizzy, as if the room had begun to spin. I wish it had never happened," Chloe stammered, her voice cracking under the pressure of unspoken truths. "But it did, and I can't change that. I know I've hurt you." The sincerity in Chloe's voice, mixed with that familiar ring of sisterly love, was nauseating. Jess wanted to scream at her, to tear her apart for the pain that bubbled within her chest. "You can't," Jess started, but the force of her emotions choked the words. Just then, the doors of the church creaked open. All eyes turned to the entrance, where a figure cloaked in shadow stepped inside. His wrinkled face seemed familiar. Jess squinted as the light caught him. It was her father, a man she hadn't seen in years. His presence felt like a slap, drawing gasps from everyone present. "Dad?" Jess whispered, incredulous. "What are you?" He raised his hand, silencing her, his gaze fixed dangerously on Mark. "What did you do?" he demanded, his voice booming through the hushed crowd, echoing against the walls. The tension shifted again, sharp and sudden. Mark shrank back, eyes wide with shock as he realized that the repercussions of his actions went far beyond Jess. "Do you have any idea what you've put this family through?" Jess's father continued, his voice low and tense. "You've disgraced her, and you've disgraced her mother and me all over again. What do you know about it?" Mark fired back, defiance igniting in his eyes for a moment before fear took over. A chill swept through the air. Jess grasped the edge of the altar for support, her heart racing. She had never seen her father this animated, and the way he was glaring at Mark made her stomach twist with a mix of dread and confusion. "I know everything. And you're not who you think you are, son," he said, his voice dripping with an intensity that filled the silence of the church. The air pulsed with the weight of unspoken secrets hanging by a thread, and Jess could feel the grip of dread tightening around her heart. This tangled web of betrayals and long-held truths was about to tear wide open, and the revelations promised to be explosive. What did her father mean? What truth was lurking beneath the surface? As her mind raced, a new wave of questions flooded in, drowning out the chaos before her. The only thing Jess was certain of was that nothing would ever be the same. And somewhere deep inside her, curiosity mingled with fear. What lurked in the shadows that she was yet to uncover? Jess's breath hitched as she processed her father's words. Her heart thundered in her chest, drowning out the murmurs around her. Her mind reeled. What did he mean? Not who you think you are. She searched Mark's face for answers, but all she found was a mixture of anger and panic. The church felt like it was closing in on her, walls pulsing with tension. Jess's father, a man whose absence had marked her life, now stood before her as an embodiment of chaos. What does he know? She thought, a knot tightening in her throat. "Dad, I don't understand," she managed to whisper, desperation clawing at her voice as she sought clarity. Her father shook his head, cutting her off. "You will," he said, each word biting sharply, reverberating through her gut. He stepped closer to Mark, his silhouette stark against the stained glass light, casting long shadows across the cold, hard floor. "You think you can just walk away from this? You think I want to expose everything?" "Expose what?" Mark shot back, the bravado not matching the fear sparking in his eyes. "You don't even know the truth." The crowd shifted, caught between anticipation and grave concern, whispers rising like a storm in the pews. Jess could feel the weight of their gazes pressing down on her, confusion rippling like a tide. She looked to Chloe, searching for solidarity, but all she saw was her sister's face, pale and rigid. "Stop. Just stop it," Jess shouted, her voice slicing through the tension. "If there's something I need to know, then tell me." Her father paused, choosing his words carefully as if each had the power to shatter lives. "You have every right to know the truth, just about your fiancé and your sister." He turned to Mark, eyes blazing. "This is your chance. What are you hiding from her? Who are you really?" Jess trembled, piecing together the fragments of the nightmarish puzzle. The betrayal had already seemed unbearable, but the notion that more could be lurking sent her spiraling deeper into despair. Mark hesitated, the mask of confidence slipping as he weighed the choice between honesty and self-preservation. "I didn't want to ruin everything, Jess," he burst out, voice cracking. I was going to tell you after the wedding." "Tell me what?" Jess's voice was thick with anger and hurt, wrapping around the words like a noose. "That you slept with my sister? That your secrets run deeper than I could have imagined?" The room stilled. In the silence, Jess's heart beat louder, each thud resonating with the uncertainty that loomed over everything in her life. Mark opened his mouth to speak, but instead, a nervous laugh escaped. "You don't want to hear this." "Try me," Jess challenged, each word like a thunderclap in the stillness. Mark swallowed hard, glancing at her father. Sensing the mounting pressure, he exhaled deeply. "You think I'm just some jerk? There are things in my past, dark things. Things that what things?" Jess stepped closer, urging him on, desperation mounting. Her father leaned in, almost eager for Mark to finally crack open the truth. The tension hung thick in the air, a living entity watching, waiting. Suddenly, the doors burst open again, and Jess's heart jolted. A figure emerged, a familiar face that had been absent from her life for too long. It was her mother, her expression twisted with worry, confusion, and an urgency that spoke volumes. "Jess!" she shouted, cutting through the chaos. "You need to know." Jess's heart raced as she turned, torn between the past and present, the secrets spilling forth, and the love she had thought was solid, now a crumbled facade. Just then, the lights flickered ominously, plunging the church into shadow. In that split second, Jess realized the unraveling threads of her life were tangled in something much larger, something she hadn't anticipated. What buried truth lay waiting to be unleashed? As darkness enveloped the room, one thought echoed in her mind. She had to uncover every secret, or risk losing everything she thought she knew. The flickering lights returned, casting ghostly shapes around the church as Jess tried to process everything crashing down on her. The urgency in her mother's voice knifed through the chaos, leaving her breathless. "Mom? What are you doing here?" Jess managed to choke out, the lump in her throat growing. Her mother's presence brought both comfort and confusion, a flicker of hope and yet a surge of dread. But there was no time. "I need to talk to you." "It's about your father," her mother started, stepping forward, eyes darting nervously between Mark and Jess's father. "Not now, Anna. We're not finished here." Jess's father spat, venom curling around his words. Ignoring him, Anna stepped into the center of the growing storm. "Jess, please. You don't know the half of it. You think this is just about Mark? What do you mean?" Jess's voice was shaky but demanded clarity. It's darker than you think," her mother stammered, fear etching lines into her brow. "Mark's past, it involves something that could tear this family apart." A heavy silence fell, as if the air had thickened with dread. Jess's heart raced, pounding a frantic tempo of fear and anticipation. "It's not just about his betrayal," Anna continued, her voice lowering. "It's what he's connected to, Jess. Not just your sister, but something far more sinister." "What could possibly be worse than what I already know?" Jess snapped, emotion boiling over. She couldn't take another blow, not when she felt exposed and raw, standing in the very center of her personal apocalypse. Mark's face paled, an array of emotions crossing his features. Guilt, regret, fear. He opened his mouth, ready to speak, but then stopped, an unspoken plea reflected in his eyes. "If you only knew," he murmured, a broken whisper so filled with anguish that it dripped like poison into the already charged atmosphere. "Tell me," Jess screamed, anger thrumming through her veins. "What is it? What could you possibly be hiding now that's worth all this?" "This wasn't my choice," he replied, voice shaking. "You're in danger, Jess. There are people who want to let this go. This is about your life." Jess, her mother interjected, but Jess was on a hair trigger. She looked between the fracturing triangle of family members, each holding secrets, each potentially betraying her in ways she could not yet fathom. Then, something shifted. A shadow moved in the corner of the dim church, stepping quietly from the back. Jess turned, eyes wide. "A stranger? What were they doing here?" "Time's up," the figure said, their voice low and gravelly, reverberating through the hushed space. Panic surged within Jess. "Who are you?" "Someone who knows the truth about Mark and your family," the stranger replied, their gaze locking onto Mark's with a predatory intensity. "And I suggest you listen well, Jess. Time slips away fast." Her breathing quickened, the weight of unsaid truths pressing down on her like a leaden shroud. In that moment, she understood she was standing at a crossroads of unbelievable consequences. "Mom, what does he mean?" Jess shouted, desperate for answers, but before Anna could respond, the lights flickered again, barely illuminating the stranger's cold smile. With every second that passed, Jess felt the walls of her world closing in. She had to act. She had to know, and as the stranger edged closer, Jess felt her future hang in the balance. Would she have the strength to face the impending revelations? Or would the darkness consume her completely? What truth lay beneath the surface, threatening to devour everything she thought she held dear? The stranger stepped forward, a menacing figure against the backdrop of the flickering lights, their presence stifling. Jess couldn't shake the feeling that he was the embodiment of all the dark secrets hovering on the edges of her family's narrative. Mark S. passed ISNT just about infidelity. Jess, the stranger, continued, his voice a rasp that slithered into the silence. There are horrors that you've been shielded from, and now they're clawing their way back into your life. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest, blood rushing to her ears. What do you mean? She spat defiantly, refusing to back down. With a slow, deliberate movement, he pulled something from his coat, a small, weathered notebook, its cover stained and creased. This belonged to him, he said, tossing it onto the wooden floor. It landed with a thud, pages slightly splaying open, revealing densely packed scribbles. Mark's eyes widened, horror streaking across his face. No, you can't, too late, the stranger interrupted sharply. The truth is out. You've kept this buried for too long. She glanced between her father's clenched fists and her mother's stricken expression, her mind racing. Jess felt like she was standing on a tightrope. One wrong move and she would plunge into darkness. She could almost taste the desperation, sharp and acrid in the air. Tell me what's in that book, Mark. I can't, he choked out, his face paler than before, as if he'd seen a ghost. Jess, Anna pleaded, stepping closer. You need to listen to him. We can get out of here. Just out of where? Jess snapped, frustration fueling her voice. Running away. ISNT going to solve this. The stranger stepped even closer, the menace radiating from him palpable. You're right. There's no escaping this. The past is coming full circle now. What you think you know is just the tip of the iceberg. What do you know? Her voice trembled, uncertainty creeping in. The air between them thickened as she challenged him. He smirked, and it chilled her to the bone. I know about the debts, Marcos, and the lengths some will go to collect on them. Mark's shoulders sagged, defeat washing over him. I didn't want any of this to affect you, just I thought I could protect you, he whispered, a broken man laid bare. Protect me from what? Her voice fell to a whisper. She took a small step towards the stranger, drawn in by a fierce curiosity. What debts? What lengths? People don't just disappear, Jess, he replied, his eyes glinting with a dangerous gleam. Your sister's not just missing. This web of deceit goes deep, and you are now tangled in it. The question is, are you ready to face the truth? As he spoke, the lights flickered more violently, casting shadows that made the church seem alive, pulsing with unseen forces. Jess's pulse quickened, and dread clawed at her insides. I'm done playing games. She raised her voice, but inside, fear gnawed at her resolve. Would knowing the truth really set her free, or would it bind her to a fate worse than she imagined? Want to know a secret? The stranger leaned in, a taunting whisper. Your sister's life hangs in the balance, and it's tied directly to Mark's past. Jess felt her breath hitch. The implications of his words were like a punch to her gut. No. Suddenly, the doors of the church banged open, and a cold wind surged inside, extinguishing all but one light. The atmosphere shifted, as if the world had tilted on its axis. Time's running out, the stranger said, a knowing smile curving his lips, and with a final sweeping gesture, he turned and vanished into the darkness. Wait! Jess shouted, but he was gone. The weight of the words now lay heavy in the air, twisting her stomach into knots. Secrets, lies, and the flicking lights loomed larger than ever. Jess stood at the edge of a chasm, and the echo of her sister's name reverberated in her mind. The walls were closing in, and she had to make a choice. What truths lurked within those pages? Would unearthing the truth save her sister or obliterate everything she held dear? Jess's pulse raced as she stared at the small notebook on the floor, the pages fluttering gently in the cold draft, a silent invitation, or perhaps a warning. Her mind swirled with questions that blurred the lines between dread and determination. She had to know what lay in those pages. Mark. She turned to him, her voice steady despite the chaos inside her. What's in that book? This can't just be about debts and hidden names. Your past. It's about my sister too, isn't it? Mark's face was a mask of anguish, eyes darting toward the door as if he expected the stranger to return. Jess, please, you need to understand. Some truths can destroy a family. What is left to destroy? She shot back. Your secrets have already torn us apart. Anna stepped forward, her hands trembling at her sides. This isn't the way to handle it. We should leave the past buried, not dig it up like grave dirt. But it's my sister. Jess cried, exasperated. Her eyes darted back to the notebook, that small tome holding an avalanche of secrets. She took a deep breath, summoning her courage. I want to stand by and wait. I need to see it. With a swift movement, she knelt beside the book and flipped open to the nearest page. The smell of old paper filled her senses, a faint mustiness laced with something sharp and metallic. Her eyes raced across the densely packed scribbles, a mix of thoughts, half-formed ideas, and quick sketches. One phrase jumped out at her, a terrified, scrawled "they know." "Jess, don't!" Mark shouted, lunging forward to grab her hand. She jerked away, her heart hammering harder with each second. How can you let this rot in the dark? If there's something to fix, to find, we can't just pretend. Some things cannot be fixed, he muttered, almost to himself. The notebook flew from her grasp as Mark snatched it, panic etched into his features. Don't read it. Why? What could be worse than losing my sister? She shot back, desperation tipping her voice into a shriek. Suddenly, the remaining light flickered ominously, and a low rumble echoed through the church, as if the world outside was shifting and turning. The silence felt pregnant with threat. Then, there it was, another voice creeping through the shadows. What she needs to know is that sometimes the truth is a killer. Jess spun around, and there stood another figure emerging slowly from the darkness at the back of the church. A woman. Her hair glinted silver in the dim light, a fierce glare piercing through the murk. "Who are you?" Jess demanded, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "I'm someone who has seen the price of buried truths," she said coolly, taking a step closer. "Your family can't outrun their past, Jess. It will always catch up, no matter how far you go." Tension thickened the air, crackling like a live wire. Mark looked between the new arrival and his daughter, his face a mask of grief and something unnameable rage. "Fear? Get out!" he snapped, but Jess felt a strange pull toward the woman. Something in her eyes was both warning and invite. The woman smiled grimly. "You want answers, don't you? Then let us stop dancing around. The notebook holds more than debts. It holds names. Names of people involved in your sister's disappearance." With a jolt, Jess realized the paper was no longer a harmless piece of her father's past. It was now the key to unraveling a nightmare she never wanted to be part of. "Tell me everything," she uttered, her voice a whisper of resolve. "Everything? You might not like what you find," the woman replied, her gaze piercing through Jess's facade. Jess stood on the precipice of revelation, a shiver of fear and curiosity twisted in her stomach. She looked to Mark, pleading for support, but his face was drawn tight, like a coiled spring. "Tell her what she needs to know," he said finally, voice hoarse. "Before it's too late." The walls trembled as their voices echoed in the stillness, the weight of their discussion sinking deep into a now familiar dread. The woman stepped closer, intensity radiating off her. "You're about to open a door, Jess. And once you do, there's no going back." And just as she raised her hand to reveal another dark secret, the lights flickered again, plunging them into darkness. What horror lay ahead? Would uncovering the truth spell salvation or damnation for her sister? The chill of uncertainty wrapped around Jess like a shroud as she braced for the storm to come. The darkness was disorienting, a heavy blanket that swallowed them whole. Jess's breath quickened, the silence amplifying the storm of emotions roiling inside her. The woman's presence felt almost palpable in the dark, like a silent predator waiting to strike. "Mark?" Jess whispered, her voice trembling in the void. She reached out, her hand meeting the cold, hard surface of the pew. Panic twisted like a knife in her stomach. This felt wrong. Everything felt wrong. We have to turn on the lights." Mark's voice was barely above a whisper, the fear threading through the words. She could hear him fumbling, their surroundings shifting with the sound of scuffling shoes and rattling breath. Then, a faint glow flickered to life, illuminating the edges of their world, revealing scared glances and panic-stricken faces. Jess's heart sank as she locked eyes with the woman. The light caught the glinting silver strands in her hair, casting an eerie glow around her pale features. "Your sister, Jess," the woman said, her voice low and conspiratorial, curling through the air like smoke. "There are forces working against you that you cannot even begin to understand." "What do you know about my sister?" Jess demanded, the raw edge of desperation breaking through. "It's all in the book," she said, her dark eyes boring into Jess's. "Your sister's name, the names of those who betrayed her, and the price of keeping such secrets." Jess felt as if she were standing at a cliff's edge, the ground beneath her crumbling. The notebook had already split her family apart. Now it felt like an invitation to plunge deeper into the abyss. "Why should we trust you?" Mark interjected, his voice tense. "You just appear out of nowhere and then the lights fail? You want us to open that darkness?" "Because the truth is more powerful than fear," the woman replied, her tone mirroring his seriousness. "Trust me, if you don't act now, you may lose her forever. You know as well as I do that nothing is as it seems." "Enough," Jess shouted, the weight of frustration spilling over. "I've already lost her once. I need to know what happened, and what you're saying is true." Mark looked torn, his protective instincts roaring to the forefront. He stepped closer to Jess, a hand resting gently on her arm. "Jess, think this through. What if you're opening a door that leads to something even worse?" Jess shook her head. "Right now, I can't think. I need answers." She stepped forward, the need driving her closer to the uncertain woman. The fear gnawing at her felt insatiable, as if the darkness had teeth. With a deliberate movement, the woman extended her hand, revealing the notebook. "Very well. But know this, you're not just uncovering secrets, you're inviting troubles from all corners. Be prepared to face the consequences." Jess took the notebook, her fingers trembling as she felt the rough texture of the cover. She opened it again, the pages whispering with secrets, thousands of unspoken words. The fear and resolve coalesced into something tangible, a mission, a necessity. "Jess," Mark whispered, but before he could protest further, the floorboards creaked like a warning. A sound echoed from the back of the church, a shuffling, scuttling noise that suggested they were not alone. "What was that?" Anna gasped, her face pale, darting her gaze toward the source of the sound. Jess felt the air grow electric, each heartbeat echoing in a suffocating rhythm. The shadows along the walls rippled as though something moved within them. The woman's eyes widened slightly, an acknowledgement of the danger lurking nearby. "Get ready," the woman murmured. "It seems your past has come to reclaim what it lost." Jess felt a chill grip her heart as she turned towards the noise, acknowledgement dawning on her. Was it the specter of the truth closing in? A figure? A threat? What awaited them just beyond the light, and at what cost would she uncover the secrets of her sister? And in that moment, standing on the precipice of revelation, Jess realized she had to choose: face the darkness, or let it consume them all. "Are you ready?" the woman asked, the question taunting and terrifying all at once. They stood together, on the brink of something monumental, and the darkness whispered its haunting promise. The truth was hungry. What would emerge from the shadows? Would they be ready for the monster that awaited? The scuttling grew louder, a rhythmic patter that echoed through the church, sending chills cascading down Jess's spine. The faint light from the flickering bulbs struggled against the surrounding shadows, as if each spark of illumination was a desperate gasp for air. "Jess, stay back," Mark urged, a fierce protectiveness lacing his words. But Jess couldn't move. She was anchored to the spot, her heart pounding in sync with the unsettling sounds creeping closer. The woman's gaze darted to the source of the noise, anticipation etched across her face. "It's time to face the truth," she said, with a chilling calmness that made Jess's skin crawl. "There are things lurking here, in the dark, waiting to be exposed." "What does that mean?" Jess managed to choke out, her throat dry. Just then, something within the shadows shifted, a figure emerging like a nightmare materializing from the depths of her worst fears. A gaunt man stepped forward, his features obscured by the dim glow. Dark eyes clung desperately to life, darting between Jess and the woman. Time seemed to screech to a halt as recognition hit Jess like a thunderbolt. No, she breathed, her voice barely above a whisper, a shivering disbelief wrapping around her like a cold shroud. Mark, it's him. Mark's eyes widened as he took a step back. Who is that? Finn, Jess stammered, her mind racing. The brother of her sister's fiancé, the shadow that had loomed over her family like a storm cloud. He was supposed to be, but her words trailed off, lost in the chaos brewing within. Finn's lips twisted into a smirk, though it seemed more like a grimace than anything. You're right on time, Jess. Your sister won't be able to hide from this. What do you want? Jess demanded, anger swirling with confusion within her. She clenched the edges of the notebook, its edges biting into her palm. Was this why she had been drawn to the darkness? To confront this twisted piece of her past, his voice slithered through the air, oily and unsettling. Answers. You think you're the only one seeking truth? We all have secrets, some more dangerous than others. The walls trembled with mirthless echoes as Finn took a step closer. Jess could see the madness dancing in his eyes, a chaotic mixture of desperation and malice. You're not ready for the truth, Jess. But you'll find it, oh yes, you will. Back away from her. Mark yelled, stepping in front of Jess as if physical proximity could shield her from the malevolence radiating from Finn. The woman's gaze flickered between them, a mix of intrigue and caution. You must face him. The truth can only be revealed in the light or the absence of it. Her dark eyes were unyielding, almost challenging. Stay back, Jess shouted, her voice breaking. Fear strangled her words as she darted her gaze around, searching for a safe escape, but all she found was the encroaching, suffocating darkness. Finn's laughter rang out, filling the church with a hollow, echoing sound that set her teeth on edge. You can't escape it. You'll never escape me. What you've uncovered already ties you to us all. What do you mean? Jess felt the noose tightening around her heart as fragmented memories tore at her resolve. What are you hiding? He chuckled, a twisted glee in his response. The story unfolding here is more tangled than you think, Jess. Your sister and we have a history, and I'm afraid it's not one that fades away. As he spoke, shadows began to writhe around him, coiling like tendrils reaching out for her soul, testing her resolve. Don't listen to him, Mark urged in a hushed tone, grabbing Jess's arm. He's trying to manipulate you. But Finn's words lingered like a thick mist in the air. When the past collides with the present, it reveals horrors you never imagined. Jess found her resolve hardening. This fight wasn't just against Finn, it was against the tangled web of betrayal and darkness that had ensnared her life. Tell me, she shouted, the fear crackling in the air around her, a defiance rising like fire within her chest. What are you hiding? With a flick of his wrist, Finn cast shadows deeper, the air vibrating with something sinister. You'll find out soon enough. But be careful, Jess. Sometimes the truth can be more haunting than the lies. And, suddenly, the lights flickered violently, and the church plunged into darkness again, the oppressive silence now filled with the weight of unspoken horrors lurking just beyond the edges of reality, ready to strike when they least expected it. Would Jess unlock the mysteries buried in the shadows, or would the darkness consume her whole? Time was running out. The flickering lights returned, illuminating Jess' resolve as she steadied herself, the notebook clutched in her fists. She turned to Mark, her heart racing. You need to tell me everything. Now. Mark struggled, glancing nervously at Finn. Jess, I swear, I thought I could protect you. I didn't want you involved in this mess. What mess? She demanded, her voice raw with urgency. I'm already involved, Mark. I need to know. Finn stepped closer, his twisted smile widening. Don't you see? The truth isn't just about betrayal. It involves much bigger stakes that are far from over. Jess felt the weight of dread settle in her stomach. She couldn't ignore the shadows creeping closer, the claustrophobic threat hanging in the air. What do I have to do to save my sister? She asked with a fierce determination. I don't know if you can, Mark said, his expression pained as he looked between them. But Finn knows why she's missing and why those debts come with a price. No one's leaving until we have clarity. Jess shouted, her voice echoing off the church walls. Finn, what is your game? Finn chuckled darkly. You're slow, Jess. You're a pawn caught in a chess game you can't begin to comprehend. Mark's unease bubbled over. Enough of this. You're not going to play with her life like it's a game. Jess stepped forward, eyes locked on Finn, fearlessly. What do you want? Finn's eyes glinted with manic delight. What I want is a reckoning, Jess. There's blood on that notebook, and it leads back to your sister. Stop it. Jess shot back, feeling her blood run cold. What have you done? The tension crackled in the air like a whip. Nothing you can't handle, Finn replied, voice almost playful. But her name is tied to everything, the debts, the lies. Just know, someone will come for you, Jess. They'll come to settle scores. Who? She pressed, breath hitching with fear. Finn smirked, a glint of satisfaction in his voice as he moved closer. Remember the shadows? They're watching, waiting for you to uncover the truth. And they're hungry for pain. With a surge of anger, Jess held the notebook high. If this is connected to my sister, then with this knowledge, I can protect her. Naive, Finn spat, retreating slightly as if the words struck him. Knowledge comes with a price, and that price may be your sanity. Enough. The voice detonated from behind them. Jess turned, eyes widen as she saw the woman stepping forward again. Finn, you don't know what she's capable of. Or what I'm willing to risk, Jess added boldly. The woman's fierce gaze flickered between them. Jess, the truth is more powerful than revenge. Your sister isn't just missing, she's ensnared in something dark. But if you expose the truth, you hold the power. A tremor coursed through Jess. What power? The power to break the cycle, the woman said, stepping closer. But you must be ready for the backlash. Give me the truth. Finn shouted, desperation edging his voice. Let it all spill, Jess. They can't save you from it. Stop it. This isn't a game. Mark interjected, pulling Jess protectively closer. You have nothing to gain by terrorizing her. Isn't that what you're doing? Finn deflected, his gaze darting between them, eyes gleaming with something sinister. She's in deeper than she knows. The family is already broken, and in chaos, desperation flourishes. Enough. Jess cried, bursting with boldness. I'll confront whatever lies ahead, she declared, clutching the notebook tightly. I won't hide anymore. I'll seek out the truth for my sister. Finn sneered, retreating slightly. Such bravery. But remember, bravery can lead to folly. I'm done with your games, Finn, Jess stated, defiance burning in her gaze. I want to know what you've done to my sister and what you plan to do with me. A split second of silence felt thick with tension, both sides weighing heavy in the balance of confrontation. Then Finn spoke, his voice low and heavy with malice. There are those who don't take kindly to the truth, Jess. The past is a brutal beast. Don't wake it. The atmosphere felt electric, the shadows swirling like a tempest. Around them, Jess glared back at him, unwavering. Bring on the beast. I'm ready. This is your final moment of choice, the woman warned. Step forward and dive into the darkness or retreat into ignorance. Steeling herself, Jess made her decision. She turned to Mark and her parents. Stay close. Together we face it all. As the lights flickered wildly, Jess took a deep breath, channeling every fiber of her being into confronting the truth. She stepped forward, fearlessly, toward Finn, toward the darkness, knowing that there, buried among the ashes of betrayal and secrets, lay the key to saving everything she held dear. Then the world around them trembled as the shadows heaved. And Jess was prepared to face whatever horrors awaited within. Mark and her parents clung to her side as they moved toward the chaos, hearts pounding as one finally ready to unravel the tangled web of lies, to break free together. It was time to confront their demons, and it would require every ounce of courage to reclaim their love, their family, and their right to fight back against the darkness. Together, they stepped boldly into the unknown, ready to unearth the secrets that had chained them for too long. Now, don't let this ending catch you off guard. You need to subscribe now to stay locked in for more twists and turns coming your way. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. What shocked you the most? You've made it this far, don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need closure on this gripping tale.